Hey guys, I'm here with some of the DarkZero boys, and we'll be going over a bit of an overview of the invitationals to come. We'll be talking about invitationals itself, and of course a bit of DarkZero and the likes. And these guys don't quite need an introduction, but for the people that are curious, we'll do it anyway. We got Rookie of the Year in Panbazou, aka Rob. We got double world champion Troy Canadian. We got back-to-back world champion of myself and Pengu, and we have Mint. Mint, of course, is not just Mint, he's also known for his renowned blitz and multiplay in the NAL, and he started his career as a legend back in Year 1, Season 1 with VWS, and then brought it all the way back to 2021 Invitationals with DarkZero as a player, and is now a coach for them in this current moment. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. How about
Yeah,
you?
doing great.
Good? Alright, we got it all figured out, and thank you guys for taking the time, of course. And, Mint, let's start kind of from the last big thing that happened. So, what did the team learn from Sweden? The last thing you guys partook in.
Yeah. So honestly, it's like, what haven't we learned? We're such a new team. I think that was like our first 3 months together, and honestly, we had no idea what this roster was going to look like. We were running the wrong roles in the beginning. We didn't even know our map pool really going into Sweden. Uh, we didn't know like the style of play that we wanted to do. So all that has kind of been figured out after. I think it was just like the first 3 months of kind of gelling. The guys are kind of getting used to Troy being the IGL. They came from myself and then Brandon. So props to them for getting used to another new IGL. I'm kind of calling the shots there. So yeah, just kind of getting everyone comfortable, figuring where we wanted to go with this whole thing, this whole project that we have, and think we're on the right track right now.
Will you guys say that you're going into, because we're going back to Sweden for Invitationals. It got,
Yep.
changed from Canada to Sweden. So going back to Sweden, do you guys think that you are now going into it like we know what we want and we know how we want to do it, as opposed to last time where it was a bunch of like, how are we going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. Like, obviously, going into every event, like we give ourselves a chance to win. We're in contention every time. That's kind of how we think as competitors. But really, it was kind of like the learning experience. Like, Rob never been to an international LAN. Nick's only been to one before. So a lot of the players are still young. We're still building up. And then obviously as a team, we're still young and still kind of building that there. So we're just taking all those lessons, all those losses that we've taken from Sweden. And we think now we know where we want to go with this thing. We think now we know our style. We think now we know how we want to call in game. We think we figured out, or at least have a pretty good grasp on the meta. And going into the next event, I think we give ourselves a way better shot at it.
I think that's a fair way to look at it. I mean, you can never go into tournaments thinking, oh, we're going to stump people, but you also can't count yourself out entirely. And you guys have kind of been gambling on like the younger people. We're speaking in GR, we're speaking Panbazou, or Rob who's here with us. And that's something that I am a big fan of, where you guys are growing talent and building it. But that also means, as you said, these events are the first, or one of the first few events that these players have ever attended. And Rob, I'm coming to you now. How does it feel to go to such a big event for your first time? We got Sweden as a major, and then you got invitationals, the biggest event of the year, the biggest thing you can play in Siege, and you're just this new guy who's just going there. How does that, like, how do you deal with that?
Um, I think it's amazing. I think it's every player's dream to play at an invite. For me, it all happened so fast. I played one season of CL. I didn't even qualify for playoffs. Joined EZ and like played at a major my first season, which still surreal, but definitely doesn't come without a lot of hard work. And yeah, it's great. It's honestly amazing.
Do you think somebody, like the likes of having somebody like Kyle or Mint or Troy on your team, experienced veterans, do you think that has played a pillar in your growth as a player? Do you feel like you can learn from them or have learned from them, and have they helped you kind of rise to the task?
It has helped tremendously. Before I joined this team, like I didn't think experience was like the biggest thing, but I very quickly learned that it's a massive part of the game. Like when I first joined, I was kind of getting smoked in scrims, like I had no idea what was going on, but with the coaches and just experienced players, it helped so much. It like definitely helped me grow much faster than most players would.
That's great to hear. I remember when Kento Rakiti joined ENS back in his debut as a up and coming young player. he was getting smoked in scrims for like 2 months straight playing Hibana. And then in their first official matches, he was like on Ashe injury, and he kind of like found his confidence and found his groove. And I feel like I've seen that with both you and NGR, where you've had moments of, you can see almost lack of confidence in your game, but then you also have had moments, especially as time has progressed, where you guys are looking extremely confident and on fire, having ridiculous games, dropping so many kills, and having such a big impact on the rounds. So that's been great so far. Troy, are you excited to go back to Sweden?
Definitely.
Definitely.
I don't know. I think when we went, we like weren't quite prepared to go to a big event.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just like the nature of the team, right? Like we weren't even expecting to make Sweden. Like we made Sweden an invite, honestly, kind of off of fluke. Like we kind of lost our chance to make it, and then TSM they lost to Mirage. We got our chance back, then we got it. All this stuff. So like we made it barely.
Yeah.
And we made it barely like with TSM underperforming in that stage, all that stuff. So I don't really think like our expectations were through the roof for the event. It was just like very early on in our team, and I think it was just a matter of we got to go and get experience. And I think what Kyle mentioned, like we didn't have a full sense of our play style, we didn't have a full sense of our map pool, stuff like that. And things have changed a lot since then. I think coming into it now, we have a lot more confidence in kind of our baseline, I'd say, and going into an event with that, it allows you to prepare for teams more because you already have all these fundamentals and all these things that you can fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
If your preparation doesn't work out. Whereas, kind of going to Sweden, it was like, well, hopefully, we pick the right map off of what we prepared off of, and
Yeah.
I think it was just a matter of like we didn't have enough time as a team, and that's how it goes. Not to say like that, bit more time and we 100% are dominating the event or something, but there's far more experienced teams there that have been playing together for longer and more prepared. And that's just how it goes.
That's cool. And then seeing as we are indeed going back to Sweden, I want to ask each one of you, but Troy first, is there a particular team or matchup that you kind of want, you out for revenge, or you just want to play them for the first time, or is there a specific team that you just really would like to play against?
I don't usually like to say this because I would like to play everyone,
Mm.
but I will say I would like to play Team One again, just because I've played against Team One twice now, and once was Sweden, where I feel like we weren't really like fully there as a team yet,
Mm-hmm.
and the other time was when I was subbing back in for SSG at SI21.
True.
And I do think I think they're a fun team to play against. I'd like to give a good match against them. I think Alamat would be fun to yell at,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I'd like that because I haven't even he's yelled at me and I've been like, I'm not we're not fully in it right now.
Yeah.
So I want to. I feel like we're there now, and I'd enjoy that matchup more. I think
It's funny you mention it because I think I read on Reddit during like Sweden Major and stuff that people are like, Troy is not really being like this loud big person right now. Like, is he not fully into it? And as you just kind of not confirmed but mentioned, is that you guys really weren't fully into it. It was more of a learning curve and early days and understanding that we got stuff to figure out before we can fully say we're here to play, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and yell at people and say we're way better than them when we have a lot to learn. We knew we had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I think we've got to that point now that if we're playing good, I do think we could beat anyone, but that's that it takes time to get there and it takes a lot of effort. So just kind of had to get there. And it wasn't that I was down about how we were playing, it was just it takes time.
Yeah. No, it takes. I think people would be surprised to know how long it actually takes to build up a formal roster, and then that's assuming that you don't also change players throughout those changes itself, because often it snowballs, right? One guy leaves, another guy joins, and then you kick a player, and then coach staff changes. And speaking of coaching staff, Mint, as a coach, is there any team you would like to play, maybe from a strategical angle, or maybe just like a kind of like a coach matchup, if you will, at Invite?
Coach matchup.
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess in my experience as far as coach matchups, Shas was always the one I looked up to. Obviously, they're not there, but it was kind of cool playing him in Mexico, right? Being across
Yeah.
the stage. Brazilian or Latin American coaches are always fun because they always try to yell over, and then I'm like, man, maybe I should start getting loud or something. um, I think just because I'm like newly a coach, I'm not too sure if there's like anyone really to go against. Obviously, like the best to see like if our strategy kind of stacks against some of the best.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one for me is still like Furia, just
Okay.
because it was the team that unfortunately I ended my career on a loss on, and I would like to kind of get back to kind of beating them again. And I think this is definitely back then we were obviously it was a horrible time for us at that SI. We were going through some stuff, and it's kind of like vengeance now. Like these boys are kind of hungry, and I'd put my money on these guys that they'll kind of take them down for me.
That's cool, and that seems to be kind of like the needle that we're threading right now is that Troy wants to take out Team One because he played them twice and lost, and Alemo, and then you want to take down Furia because you lost to them, and then also they're both from Latin America. So I do think that right now there's a bit of like what region's the best, what region's the worst, yada yada, and I think pretty universally, I mean we can look at numbers as well. Like Latin seems to be the region to beat, which means that if you want to beat the LATAM teams, that makes perfect sense. And they have been beating out almost every other teams from EU and NA and APAC lately. So is that the same for you, Rob? Are you also out for LATAM blood? Are you feeling something else?
I am. I
You
do
are?
want to beat. I want to beat Team One.
Okay.
First time we played them in Mexico, we played them in playoffs. It was very unlucky. 4 of us had COVID, or at least 4 of us were sick. 3 tested positive. Like I don't think it was a fair shot for us as a team. I think if we were in normal conditions, we could have at least gone to the third map or had a better game in general. But yeah, then Sweden, obviously we weren't in the best spot. So I want a fair shot against them with like a solidified roster.
Okay. I mean, Team One also did win Mexico major, so like beating the former major champions, and then FaZe won the Sweden one. So it makes sense to try and take the crown down. So we spoke about the teams that are like the best, the region, arguably that's the best, LATAM. What about the teams that is not the worst, but who's slept on? Maybe as a team and maybe as a region. Is NA slept on as a region? Is it APAC that slept on as a region? And then specifically, what team in that region do you think is like the team to sleep on? Because I think every single team throughout the last 6 to 9 months-ish has really shown up. Like no team is a joke anymore, and I don't think any region is a joke either.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I don't really feel like anyone's entirely slept on. Like I'd say it was Damn One, but now at this point everyone's like on their hype train, so
Yep.
that
Yeah,
doesn't
people
even
love
seem
him.
the case. Yeah, exactly. So other than that, like nothing really comes to mind. I'd say maybe the closest is NA, but I do think NA has a lot to prove because we haven't quite been showing up to that level. I think I'm hoping we're getting back to that level. Because there was a lot of turmoil in NA, right? SSG was going through shit, EZ was going through shit, all this stuff. So I do think that affected things. I guess maybe like a good example is like the Sonics because they've been kind of on their come up the whole time, but they haven't quite performed internationally.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they're a solid team. I can't really tell if they're going to perform internationally or not though, because I think basically how they've been performing in NA, that's how they've been performing the whole time. So I don't know if, them winning the US finals quite like translates to international play or not. But I do think they're a solid team. And I will say even in they have had tough groups and they've even performed against some top teams. So I do think they could show up, but yeah, I don't know. I'd say NA just because I guess we've looked the weakest and we're probably getting the most like criticism right now. So I
Yeah.
guess it's got to be NA. But I don't think anyone's quite too slept on. I feel like everyone's kind of like every time someone talks about SSG, they still see them as a threat. I think teams now that like we beat SSG with a good showing at US Finals, I think see that we're a threat as well now. Teams are seeing Sonics as a threat. So I think it doesn't seem like anyone slept.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw a name out there. Like I don't think APAC is slept on, and Damon's probably the most exciting team to watch. But I think CAG actually is a really good team to keep an eye on, just because I think if they beat Team One, they could have won Mexico. We scrimmed against them in Mexico. And that style of play, like they are crazy. They bring some meta ops that people are definitely caught off on. I'm a big fan of the Montaigne drop shotting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just probably just another team to kind of keep an eye on that I don't see anyone really talking about.
That's cool. Any thoughts, Rob? Do you have anything to say on that topic?
No, I mean, I think the two teams they listed are like definitely slept on a little bit, but I don't know.
So basically, to kind of summarize, and you guys can agree, disagree, or be neutral, there isn't a weak region. There isn't like these three guys and this one guy anymore. We're just like one unified kind of competition right now. Would that be correct to say? The level
I'd
of
say
play.
so.
Yeah?
Because I think there's top teams like from every region. Obviously, LATAM is clearly most dominant, just because they have so many teams that are looking really good and looking like a threat.
Mhm.
But there is at least one to three teams, I'd say, from every region that really look like they could do something, right? So yeah, I don't think there's any region that's like slack, which is honestly awesome, because that hasn't been the case before.
Cool. Cool. Rob, we spoke a little bit earlier about your whole Rookie of the Year award, which that's a pretty big deal, I think, especially in a region like North America where you have a lot of big names, you have a lot of big identities, and you stood out the most from those. You said earlier that it meant a lot to you, but do you want to talk a little bit about your transition from basically being, let's say, a no-name, a somebody, a random name on the screen, to being the Rob or the Panbazou or the Rookie of the Split? And kind of what did you do to prepare to kind of go into that transition? Was it a routine schedule? Was it like your mentality? Was it just ridiculous amounts of work every single day?
Do you mean like starting back to like before CO or what do
Basically,
you
you're
mean?
transitioning from when you first got picked up to DC to kind of get your shot
Okay.
at working for your rookie title.
Well, when I first joined the team, I definitely didn't expect it to be like as hard as it is. Like I said, I just kind of underestimated a lot of things, but I very quickly learned that that won't really cut it any in T1. I'd say it was a lot of help from the coaches mainly, like Brandon and Kyle just helped me a lot because I was clearly struggling in many different parts. But yeah, I don't know.
Because you basically graduated, right? And then it was like straight
Yeah,
to Vegas, basically. So it's like you're
it
this
was fast.
ordinary kid, school, big dreams of maybe Pro League one day or CL you're doing a bit of, or like Tier 3 tournaments. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, pro player, DarkZero joining, Rookie Display, going to big events,
Yeah,
going to Sweden back to back. That's crazy.
it is crazy. Yeah, it happened so fast. Like I just didn't expect it. I even when I joined the CL team, I had almost no experience. I was playing a completely different role. Initially, I only played entry because Karn thought I had a good aim, so that was it. But I don't know.
It's the
It's
young gunner
crazy.
aim. Would you
Karn
say
goat.
that what you thought Pro League was like or was going to be as a player, is that actually what it's like when you do it? Or is it a bit of like a, oh snap, this is not exactly what I expected, but it's kind of like what I expected?
I would say it's definitely not what I expected. I definitely came into like having like kind of an ego, I guess you could say. Like I just kind of underestimated everything, especially experience. But like I said, I very quickly learned it's literally a different game. Like you gotta have a different attitude, you gotta play different. It's literally a different game.
That's fair. And then speaking to your current experience of having been playing for a few months now, do you value or do you feel any more pressure? Like, so Sweden Major is one level of play, and then you have invitationals as a bit of a step higher. Do you feel any added pressure, or like there's like more at stake, or does it feel like another event to you?
Um, to me, it just feels like another event. Like obviously, it's a bigger event, but at the end of the day, like everyone's goal is to win, no matter what it is. So I'd say it's just another event.
So this is basically just like playing high stakes ranked or some CL games one
Yeah,
afternoon. Except that
of
you're in
course.
Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I
'Cause
think
you want to win everything.
what can be great about big events is that you have group stages, right? Where you can kind of just like play a bunch of teams, fight it out. You can try stupid stuff. You can try risky stuff. You can play it super safe. You can hide strats. We all know the hiding strats memes that certain teams have been using for years. Is that something that you ever consider when you play, Rob? Where when you have a chance to kind of just throw yourself at the wall, say again, you have 6, 5, 7 group stage matches. Do you try and do different stuff as time progresses, or do you just play your game? Is this something you consider?
I definitely just try to play my own game. I feel like if you're kind of thinking like that, you can get in your own head very easily. And like, I've definitely had confidence issues in myself as a player. So like, I try to avoid things like that. I just want to play my own game. That's all that really matters.
So consistency is key.
Yes.
Do you agree, Troy? Or do you have a different mindset as an IGL where when you play group stages and there's like less at risk, especially the first couple when you don't have like a losing streak? Because if you go 0-2 in groups, you want to start getting some Ws. But say you're 0-0, early days of tournament. Do you think it's a great place or time to practice some low-key strats or some different stuff or more dynamic shot calling or leadership? Or do you just stick to your guns and the paper that you've been practicing going into the tournament?
I think a lot of it just depends on the matchups you have.
Hmm?
I think there's certain teams that you can tell that you have a matchup where you can, just run your bread and butter fault kind of stuff and it'll work and it'll be fine. And there's certain teams that you might need to, mix things up and counter a bit or get creative and try to play a different style that you think might punish them. So I think it's very matchup dependent.
Yeah.
I do think you can take into account because when it's best of one groups, at least you can take into account, like maybe hiding a map, stuff like that. But I think it's very dependent on the situation, right? Like which teams you're playing against, what maps they're good at, what their play style's like, um, maybe how far you are in groups and what your record's already like. There's a lot of things to consider like that. And also a big part too is once they add a double elimination bracket, you have to consider, okay, like we need to go through winners bracket. You
Oh.
want that one map advantage. So yeah, there's a lot to consider, I think. But I also don't think every player needs to consider it. I think that's more of like a coaching staff, IGLing thing. You make the decision. That's fine. You don't want people too stressed out about it or anything like that.
So going from player to IGL to coach now, Kyle, do you feel the same way like with Troy? Like, do you feel like matchup dependent? Like some teams might need maybe a bit more, investigative work, so to speak, a little bit more prep, and then some teams you can just take the paper, toss out, and say, guys, you know how they play. They do crazy stuff. Just be alert. Just be on your toes.
I don't know. Coming from kind of like the way we've always kind of done things at DZ, we kind of approach every game very similar.
Hmm?
And like, I mean, we're playing every game to win. So if we got a call, like we kind of want to like put everyone in a body bag. Kind of how I see it. Like, we don't want to just scrape by with a 7-5. We want to 7-0, 7-1 them, and then they come back. Maybe we see them again in the tournament, and they're like, holy crap! Like, we got to play these guys again. Kind of putting fear in people. But I will say there are definitely times we might be later in group stage. Maybe we don't have a fear of going to loser bracket or anything. That stuff starts to come into consideration.
So playing it safe until you absolutely can maybe risk not playing it safe anymore. And as Troy said, you want to get that upper bracket. You want to not only just get the advantage of going to the finals with a map advantage, if that's the case, but you also just want to have a safety net where if you lose, it's loser's bracket instead of going home.
Right.
Because that sucks, right? Nobody wants to go home from a big event.
Yes.
Imagine
No, sir.
flying 16 hours to Sweden. You lose 4 games in a row in group stage, and you basically got a 16-hour flight straight back home like a day after.
Imagine that.
Imagine.
Imagine.
Or how it used to be where you fly 10 plus hours to play one match. And
Back in
we're
That's
against
true.
Penta, so guess we're going home.
That's true. I mean, that's like the worst part about having really dominant teams running, right? The good old EG Penta days where if you had EG or Penta in your group, it was like, all right, guys, I guess we're going to get really good experience for one game, and then we're going home. Like, there's just no thinking you would beat them.
But it was also like with before when it was Pro League finals, right? And you didn't have groups. You played one match.
Yeah. No,
That's
you
it.
did.
Mhm.
You basically play quarters, final, semis, and finals, right? So
Yep.
I
Yeah.
personally am a big fan of having the group stage because you also just
Yep.
get to play a lot more teams. Like if I can play every single team once at a tournament, I'm really happy. If I
Yep.
can play half of them, I'm okay. If I play one team, one best of 3, even if you win, it's just like we could have gotten so much more value out of a group system where you play,
Yep.
multiple.
It's amazing to watch too. You get to see so many more matchups, right?
No, yeah.
There, there's people out there they want to see, like Damwon play against DZ or something, right? Like you want to see these matchups that don't get the opportunity to see often because only happen at an international.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean both teams that you want to watch, they not only just have to, meet each other in a certain group bracket, but they also got to qualify in the first place. And that's kind of like I think there's two ways to look at invitationals where some people believe that the hard part is to qualify. And then obviously once you're qualified, it's like, we made it, now we just got to play our game. And some people argue that the easy thing is to qualify and the hard thing is to actually play the tournament. And I think there's a bit of both of truth to it because if you don't qualify, it's like, okay, you don't have a chance to win. And
Yep.
with so many teams being so good these days, would you argue that qualifying in itself is arguably a very big victory as opposed to just, like winning is obviously the hugest deal, but just the fact of qualifying, to me at least, also has a lot of value.
I'd definitely say it's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Um,
Even
you
if
know,
it's
I-
barely scraping by, as you mentioned, like, do you still feel accomplished by qualifying?
well, so I mean, it's I feel like I'm in a weird situation about this because I've been fortunate. I've qualified for every SI,
Mm-hmm. And
but
won some.
I will say, so I guess maybe this one was cutting it close. Like we barely qualified through the points. But when I was on SSG and we won SI, we qualified through the open qualifier, and that was the most stressful experience of my life.
Yeah.
It was more stressful than playing SI, because you don't want to miss SI. Like
Yeah.
missing SI is worse than going to SI and getting grouped, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of both. I definitely say like the accomplishment of qualifying is a big part, but then also like once you qualify, it still sucks if you qualify for SI and get grouped.
For sure.
But you do either way. When you qualify, you do have that sense of accomplishment, no matter what. And like that's it even applies like to me who I have qualified all the time. Like even when we qualified for Sweden and SI, still I was like, damn, okay, we qualified for Sweden and SI. Like this is like I was proud of us for that. So I do think just the qualifying alone is definitely big.
I think it's a healthy mindset because I remember when I was playing and when we were on a winning streak, winning was the only acceptable outcome. Qualifying wasn't enough, second place wasn't enough. And then when we started losing, everything just sucked. And then if we would just qualify for an event, we're like, oh my god, we qualified, like let's go.
Yeah.
So perspective is a big deal.
Yes.
And you guys, as you said, you went to Sweden, life wasn't great. So you can go there, you can be happy that you qualified, proud that you qualified, learn from it, and then just say, okay, next event, we're gonna go even harder. And that's obviously SI. And let's say you guys find yourself in the grand finals, right? It's quite soon. Let's say you're in the grand finals. Troy, do you have a very special thing. And I hate talking about this kind of stuff. I hate bringing it up. But you were the first person, or one of the first persons, to ever lift the hammer, right? Back in that day. It was a lifetime ago. And with this invitationals, you also have the shot at being one of the first people to ever lift a third hammer. Because there are some people with 2 hammers, but nobody has ever lifted a third. Do you feel like
Yes.
there's a bit of legacy to this run for you? And has that crossed your mind basically as you guys qualified for invite?
I mean, definitely. There's no way it hasn't,
Mm.
but it's not like a pressure of like, well, we gotta win. I gotta get this third hammer. I definitely want it to happen. I definitely think we can make it happen. We're playing at our best, but I'm not. It's not the end of the world. I don't know. Life goes on. I think kind of what you mentioned. Yeah, it's a matter of perspective. I think you have to have a short-term memory. In terms of like past accomplishments and just losing and whatnot. Like you can't feel entitled to any.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as you win the next day, you're no longer. It doesn't matter. The next day, you have to do it again. So I think that's important to remember.
I like the saying that is it's like you're only as good as your last event, essentially. Which I
Only
think,
as good as your last game.
yeah, last
My
game.
dad used to tell me that when I was 8 playing hockey.
Oh, so that's ingrained in there.
Yes.
Is that something that you use as well, Rob, these days as a younger player? You said you had, some ego problems and stuff in the past. Do you also now believe that you're only as good as your last game?
100%. 100%.
100%. So next season,
Yeah.
or even for invite, you're not the rookie of the year. You're just Panbazou then, yeah? You're just playing your game.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to see it.
Yeah.
Because like, no point of I wouldn't say there's no point, but like if you just keep talking about the last event, but you're not like performing anymore, like who cares? Who cares?
Okay.
That's
So
how I see it.
is
No.
there anything you would say to aspiring players, Rob? We're talking people in CL, people that want to be in CL, or maybe like rookies in NAL. We also know that there could be some roster changes after SI for every region. That happens every year. So anything that you would say to those people who were in your shoes, or who will be, I guess, in your past shoes, if anything?
I don't know. I'm not really good at this thing.
No ego?
Yeah, definitely not. Like, you definitely don't take anything for granted, I guess. Like, I don't know, dude. It's so hard.
It is
It's so
hard.
hard.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
but what we gathered earlier is you mentioned the ego thing and understanding that people are actually a lot better than you are because you're the new
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
You spoke about, trust in teammates, coaching staff, working with them, listening to them, and how experience is a very big factor that you didn't give a damn about in the beginning, but you learned very
Yeah.
quickly that experience is key to these things.
Yeah.
And then
I have heard that from multiple young players
Yeah.
that have gone, and then like they came like full. I heard this from Fultz for sure, and I've heard it from Rob now, and I think I've heard it from some others. I can't remember names exactly, but they were both like, yeah, like I thought I had it all figured out, and then I joined Pro League, and all of a sudden it's a whole different game, and like they realize that. I think what you're mentioning, just like you can learn from anyone, and even when you become more experienced, that's still the case. Like no matter what, you can learn from anyone, and you shouldn't ever get to that point where you feel like you know it all. You don't. You never.
I think that especially applies to older players like ourselves, where now Rob's kind of the outlier, but you, me, and Mint, where it's like we've played for multiple rosters, iterations of rosters, teams, orgs, coaching staff, and you could easily be like under the impression that you kind of know it all because you've done it all, especially if you've won invite twice or back to back or played multiple majors. But I think there's a lot that can be learned from newer players as well. Just something as simple as the motivation and the hunger they can bring into a team. If you have 4 boomers and you get this one zoomer, it's almost like you can feed off his energy, right? He comes in like, oh guys, what does this button do? Boop, boop, boop. Oh, we won the round. Bop, bop. How does that work? Oh, I can't have skins on? My bad. I'll take the skins off right now. Is that something that you think Rob also kind of brought to the team when he initially joined, where he was just this, like, I know in JR, obviously also a bit younger, but do they bring the young boy energy that kind of lifts up the team in a bit?
I'd say so. One thing that I've started to notice, and I think it's actually made me better as a player, is I started to look at like players like Rob, players like Nick, Paul, just looking at how they take engagements or how they think about certain things in the game, and it'll make me a better individual player. And I think it's actually elevated my game a lot, because that's something I've always struggled with, where I just focused on the team aspect of it. I understood that part of the game, but I didn't put as much effort into improving in these other areas. And I think I didn't really have the perspective of how they approach the game, how they approach engagements, and how they approach things like that. And mechanical skill is, you see it, and it's very easy to just see it as like just talent. But there's a lot of it that is decision making, like how someone takes a gunfight and how safe they are, and how they avoid overextending and stuff like that. And I think that's something that I've learned a lot from a lot of younger players that I've played with.
Yeah. I think you kind of mentioned it with like when we first made the roster change, when we were like a team for a year and a half, when we had hot and cold and we had skies. It was mainly like we all as a group kind of decided we needed some freshness. We were a team for a long time. We needed some freshness, so we picked up Nick, and he definitely brought that young kind of like mentality where like someone comes in, they've never been on a professional team like this before. They're hungry, they're grinding. You see them like aim labbing all the time, or just constantly working on their craft, and it kind of motivates some of the older players to like, all right, get back into it. Like we got to match. We can't let the young guy kind of outwork us right now. But definitely like with what Troy's saying too, at least for me that I noticed, like as I got older and as I turned into a boomer, I started taking like less engagements because like, okay, if you think about it, the three of us have died how many more times than Rob has died in a pro league game?
Yep.
And there's been some like ways where you feel like you've been cheated and you're like, I'm never doing that again, And Rob comes in and he's just very careless, and there's things that he would do for us that like no one else would do. Like there was an example, I think it was in the SSG game last season when we first picked up Rob, or 2 seasons ago when we first picked up Rob, and it was like we were stumped on an Aviator Villa attack. There was a Mira on the split wall looking at us. We couldn't go for like a normal plant. And I think it was like Paul that was just like, hey, Rob, because Paul's not running in that room. And he's like, hey, Rob, I need you to run in vault right now. It's the only way we're going to win. And without hesitation, Rob's like, all right, ran in there with Ash, got like a 2-piece, opened up the round for us. We ended up winning the round. And yeah, so sometimes young players just kind of bring that unpredictability, and it's really good, especially for a team like us that was like very slow on attack, and it kind of brought another element to us.
No, certainly. I mean, I was never the aggressive mechanical player like Troy spoke of, and even though it can be taught and learned, it just never clicked for me. And having a guy you can just tell, like the yes man, like, I need you to do this, and it's like the dumbest, it's like a 1% chance of working, and he'll just say, yeah, sure, I'll try. I'll do my very best, and then we'll see what happens. That's Rob. Yeah. And that's the NGR. That's the young guys.
Oh, Rob's favorite saying is "I can't."
Oh, okay.
So,
but he does it anyway, basically. Sometimes when he's told to.
And then he does and goes, "I can't. It's not possible."
Okay, never mind then. But
or he gets a kill and he's like, "Oh wow, I actually can."
You gotta believe more in yourself then, Rob.
Yeah.
It's a little engine that could. We're working on it.
Yeah, it's a constant battle.
Yeah, we used to have this thing back in G2 where let's say if I told Rob to just like go basement and like kill this guy, and if it doesn't work out, then Rob could put that on me like that, that was a bad idea. Because then it's kind of off, like Rob doesn't have to feel bad about his decision or how he failed to succeed. He can just kind of be like, well, I was told to do this and I did it, and therefore I succeeded regardless of the outcome. Had the same with planting. If I say Goga plant and he holds F key and he dies, Goga be like, you didn't cover me. I'm like, that's right, that's my bad. You did what I asked you to, and you did good. You succeeded. So
it's something important to do. Tell someone to do something. It ends up being a bad idea. Definitely say, my bad. That was a bad idea.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, how'd you die, man?
Oh, you couldn't do that crazy play like I asked you to? What a dumbass. Like, no, you can't. You just can't do that.
You must not have been doing it right.
Yeah. We gotta go with the VOD for that one. Look what happened. Speaking of VODsman, you've been watching more VODs than usual, I think, with your transition from player to coach. How's that been? No VOD watching?
No. How's like just like the coaching transition been?
Yeah, like how is it going from being a player in the space to then all of a sudden being behind the players in the space, being a coach?
Yeah, I think overall it's been good. It's kind of been, I think, my natural progression. I think some of the stuff that I'm doing as coach is stuff that I wish I could have done more as a player. But as anyone would know, and anyone especially that's been on DZ would know, we definitely are working a lot, and we have a lot of other things going on. And then you try to fit hobbies in there, girlfriends in there, or whatever, and it's just it's a lot. So I think stepping back was kind of great because it's now allowing me to do the things that I think are kind of more of my strengths. And I can kind of help them or the players in other ways than trying to just work on my own game. And it's also it's fresh, it's new for me, it's kind of excited me again. And yeah, it's overall no complaints. I know a lot of players have gone back to playing since coaching.
Yeah.
Brandon, the two-time.
Yeah.
Uh, but I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and you know, I'm not the greatest terms that I went out on, but again, no complaints.
Do you have? Because I know that you said people retire and come back, or coaches and come back. Do you have a player itch? Somewhere in the stomach, tingling sometimes.
I'll be honest. I'm not gonna say when or whatever, but there was like a 2-week period where like it was like, man, I kind of want to play again.
Yeah.
And I think everyone will. You see it in traditional sports all the time too. Like people talk about it, but then once you start like thinking about shaking the rust off, getting all back into it and everything, it's just like not for me at least not entirely worth it. Again, I think I'm better suited to what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. It allows me to have more time doing other things that I like doing as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't envy pro players' schedules, and it's certainly not like you guys in DC schedule, because you guys put in a ton of work and hours where you don't have a lot of time for hobbies or girlfriends or things that you really like want to do outside the game, and that obviously also often leads to burnout for players and teams or bad atmospheres. So having that good work-life balance is extremely important, but also extremely difficult at the same time.
yeah.
So you get to have a little bit more freedom now, I imagine. You also have a duo 2-coach system, right? Because it's both you and Brandon. So you guys
Right.
kind of share the workload between each other, or do you have a system in place for that?
Yeah, it's something we've kind of been working on since early DZ, honestly. I was the IGL, he was the coach. We've always kind of worked together really well. He's kind of brought his vision from Ominous and EG. I brought my vision from like Flipside SK.
Hmm.
We've kind of combined and made like a system. And I think we're kind of unique in the sense where, yeah, we have like 2 coaches with a lot of game experience that I don't think is anywhere else in the game right now. And that kind of just allows us to do one person could be more hands-on, right? Or we can like split up duties a lot. Like one person can have a one-on-one, the other one could be leading the other team, like the rest of the team. One person could be watching scrims and taking notes, the other one could be focusing on strategy. Um, it we're still tinkering with the system. It's kind of been like 3 months now ish, but we feel like we're kind of optimizing it, and probably something we'll see more maybe later down in Siege.
Yeah. It's cool because it's always kind of progressing in Siege or in esports, where you have, for example, back in the early days, a lot of teams had just a single IGL, like a single captain kind of leading the team. Then a lot of teams took on the tradition of having 2 people, one person in the front, one person in the back. That way you kind of cover both ends.
Yep.
Then there was a time where it was a team IGL responsibility in the utility meta, where a lot of eyes and a lot of areas had to be communicated. And the same thing kind of goes in coaching, where we used to have no coaches, then 1 coach, then coach and analyst, then 2 coaches. It's an interesting thing to see kind of play out. Is that something that you feel, Rob, as well, having 2 coaches? Do you feel, I know you don't have the most experience with coaching in the past, obviously, but do you feel having 2 coaches and having more hands-on or more people involved, is that a beneficial thing to you as a player?
I think that's definitely a massive benefit. 2 players who played different roles at different times, that can help you a lot just naturally, but just the way they see the game is a lot different from how I saw it initially and still sometimes do. So it's good to have 2, or I guess 3 different, I don't know, 3 different ways to see the game.
Yeah.
It gives you all kinds of perspective.
And you have Daddy Troy, who's kind of doing it all, maybe sometimes, a little bit of voicing, a little bit of playing, a little bit of coaching, or do you just sit back, Troy? Are you hands on also a bit in the coaching system, or are you just a player?
I'd say I'm hands on a bit. Kyle and Brandon do a ton. I
Yeah.
don't have to. I definitely don't have to do a ton. But there's strategy aspects that I like to put my voice in. We always discuss all the strategy. Kyle will run things by me, and Brandon make sure that we're keeping the same way that we want to play the game. And then as far as criticism and stuff like that goes, yes, I'm definitely still providing that. And usually a lot of the time, like Brandon or Kyle is providing the same stuff that I would say in the first place. But yeah, I'd say I'm pretty hands-on. I don't think any different than I have been before. I think EG maybe days like a lot more was on my shoulders because I don't think the game was as developed at the time, so I did a lot more there. But yeah, I'd say that it's a pretty joint effort amongst all of us, and also even in game now, like Tyler, for example, does like a lot of like a lot more of the like micro kind of IGLing,
Mhm.
which has been a huge help.
That's cool. It's important to have people to rely on both in and outside the game, right? Because let's say you have a bad day or in a bad mood and you just shut down. It's like, who's gonna take control? Who's gonna take over? So spreading the pressure out is good. I'm sure you, Rob, as well will get to IGL one day. You'll get to call the shots and be like, now Troy, you run in the
That'll be
room and you
interesting.
do the thing. And then when you fail, you can kind of give him a little bit, I could have done
Oh
that
my
better,
God.
Troy. Wouldn't that be great to
Gosh.
see?
That'd be interesting.
That's pretty much all the intense, serious questions, but there is one thing that I'd like to discuss, and this is something that I think on Twitter and Reddit, this will be discussed a ton after invite or maybe during, and that is the current competitive map pool. We have a 7 map pool, we've had it for a while, but not so much as the number of 7. Is there anything you guys would want to see change in this map pool? Like a map that goes in, a map that goes out, anything like that?
I'm more in favor just because of doing strategy and stuff, and I like to be innovative. I'd rather have just just change it up.
Hmm?
The more the merrier. I'm trying to think what's viable right now. Might as well throw in skyscraper. Why not?
So like Skyscraper Outback maybe? Because I know
I was gonna
Outback was
say
built
Outback.
for it. Yeah.
Yep, I was like Outback. Might as well. Border didn't really seem like too much changed, but just in favor of playing new maps more of the time than playing some of the older maps. I don't really know what I would take out. I think most people and players kind of tend to pick what maps their team's not strong at and be like, "Yeah, take this out."
Yeah.
So I'm
Theme
not going to
park.
say that, but
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Theme park was a big one for that. But
Yep.
yeah, I think I'd say like some of the more common ones. What's the one that's been the longest since change was Villa, but I do think a lot of teams actually like Villa.
hmm
More
So
and more.
I haven't really like I haven't heard people suggest that Villa should be removed, but it is like the obvious target in terms of how old the map is, I guess. I do think club has gotten repetitive. But there was just recently changes, so I don't know what the argument is on that. And then obviously I think there's a map that everyone like constantly is throwing in there is coastline. And I think that's also one where it's like a big, some people just don't like it.
Mm.
But I also think that it is like it hasn't been changed a ton, but it did also, along with club, recently get changed. So that's another one where it's hard to tell. But I do like new maps coming.
What I do like
Uh,
about the current map pool, though, is like some maps have like a different style of playing it. Like club, is like the default style. Coastline, kind of like more running around.
Mm.
Yeah, 1.5 gun-in style kind of thing. And it's like if we could find a way to do that with some of these newer maps, so we're not getting like 3. I mean, they're not going to be default, until like the map's been out for a long time. But somehow try to keep like it kind of balanced in that way.
Yeah, unique styles for sure.
I like that
I
take.
definitely like that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a reason I liked theme park because I think it was like more that club kind of style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem solving, right? Around the heart
Yeah,
breaching and whatnot.
just slower, more methodical.
Yeah.
Whereas like maybe Villa, for example, now or Coastline, are a bit different. I think Cafe is kind of maybe more in that alley of like club and theme. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different options, but I do like it being mixed up.
What about, before we get to Rob, what about Bank being added recently? Is that is that a yay or a nay? Because Bank has been like a monumental map for so many big situations, finals, etc. Some good moments there.
Yeah.
Do we like
I've
Bank?
I've always loved Bank. I know Kyle's always loved Bank.
Yep.
It isn't all that different though. So it's hard to say. Like it doesn't it doesn't feel like refreshing
Mm.
to play Bank. Like it doesn't feel new.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy playing it. So I'm not not preaching for Bank or anything. But
The one thing that doesn't sit well with me with Bank was like when they took it out, it was the most played map
Mm.
at I think it was like SI, right? I think it was the last time it was played.
2020.
And then I think it was the most played again, correct me if I'm wrong, in Sweden.
It was during the group stage at least. I don't know about overall, but possibly,
Right.
yeah.
I think it was definitely up there, and I would probably predict it's again going to be the most played map. Something about it's pretty simple. Every team feels pretty good on. No one's like super strong on, but that could factor into being like a good thing. Like people like playing it, or people just can't ban it, or whatever it is. But at the same time, the viewers are going to eventually get sick of watching Bank 16 times.
Yep. Rob, what's your take on Bank and the map pool as a whole?
Well, I never played Bank before, so I have no idea, but
Great.
I do enjoy the map. But yeah, same with the map pool. I wouldn't say I have the best opinion on it because I haven't been playing for that long, but I don't really have an issue.
What's your favorite map, Rob, to play competitively? Don't say coastline. Just don't do it. Any other
It's
map.
up there. That's up there.
He's a ranked player, so
I was gonna
Yeah.
say. Not
Um,
coastline. What map would it be though?
Probably Villa, just because I feel like there's so many ways you can play the map.
Mm.
I don't know. It just allows for all kinds of different play style. I think it's a great map.
Would you be? This is a bit of a tricky question, but would you be unhappy if they changed it? Obviously, if we assume it's a good change, would you be happy with Villa changing, or would you want your favorite map to kind of be the same because that's the way you like it?
No, I'd say I don't really care. I think if they change it and it makes it better, that's great.
Okay. Troy, what's your favorite map of all time in competitive play?
It's always been Bank,
Yeah.
but I don't have the same nostalgia in Bank, so I
Yeah.
don't know. Like Bank or even old Oregon.
I was gonna
And
say
that's another one where the nostalgia's gone. I play Oregon now, I don't even feel the same.
no.
Like it's not even close to the same.
I agree with that one. Old Oregon for me, I think, is like my favorite map. There's just so many memories and moments that are tied to it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even have good ones on it. But like I got maybe the worst Oregon memory of all time, but I loved old Oregon.
Oh, you didn't have to bring it up.
We gotta bring that old map back just for that nostalgic reason of whatever happened back then. Mint, I would like your take actually as a player and as a coach. So I'm curious if it's different, but let's start with as a player. What was your favorite map to play?
Okay, well, definitely Bank, but just to give a different answer, probably Consulate.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know. No reason besides like whatever we were doing on that map, we were always like nasty on it, and it was like a consistent top 2 map for us.
Yeah.
It was just very easy to understand. The defaults were pretty simple, but I don't know, a lot of good plays, a lot of windows to jump out of. Yeah, a lot of different ways to play the map, I guess. As a coach,
Like for example, whenever I think of like my favorite map is an IGL, it's Clubhouse, because as an IGL you can have like a ton of impact and sway on the map. So I was curious if there's like a map that kind of like the prep work as a coach, where you can kind of guide your troops into battle confidently with that information that they will win. Is there any map that stands out like that?
honestly, no real standouts. Like I kind of like the map pool we're in right now. I mean, like I said, I do want changes, but just for the sake of changing it. But I do kind of like what we're in. There's a couple maps I kind of hate looking at, and then it's like we need a idea for this map, and I'm like, oh God, not this map. But I'm not gonna say what that is. But I don't think there's any like standouts.
Okay. That any final words before we need to run the outro? Any closing thoughts or any topic you guys quickly want to brief touch upon, anything of the kind?
So
No? Want to get back to scrimming?
Nope.
Working?
Yeah, man.
Prepping? All right, in a joint effort, I think we should send it off. So I am gonna say thank you guys for watching, and I would like Rob to say something like, "Don't forget to hit the bell." Troy's gonna say, "Don't forget to subscribe," or also please do subscribe, and we're gonna have Kyle say, see you guys in the next one. Something like that. Joint effort.
Yeah.
Boy.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you guys so much for watching this video.
Don't forget to click the bell and like the video if you want to see more.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.